Working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Lesroy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for You is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for You.
Good afternoon, and I welcome you to another Working for You program. We thank God for lives that were spared during the passage of Hurricane Irma, and for the damages that we had. We're in recovery mode, but nothing to compare to some of the other islands who we keep in our prayers. I am Lesroy Williams, your host. I thank you for tuning in to today's program. Those of you who are joining us here at home and those of you in the diaspora, we thank you very much for tuning in every week to listen to what the government programs and activities and policies are. This program is designed to keep you informed. Today we are going to be discussing a very important topic, that of our health. And in particular, we will be discussing non-communicable diseases, NCDs, which of course kill most people. I mean, in terms of the percentage of all deaths globally, NCDs, as they are called, killed most people globally. Today I have with me two officials from the Ministry of Health to discuss this very timely and important topic of NCDs. I have with me Dr. Hazel Laws, who is the Chief Medical Officer, and I have with me Dr. Marissa Carty, who is the Non-Communicable Disease Program Coordinator in the Ministry of Health. Welcome to this program.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Williams.
I was reading something online that said that non-communicable diseases kill 40 million people each year. Whether that statistic is correct or not, I do not know, but it's from the World Health Organization, so it must have some credibility, and that is equivalent to 70% of all deaths globally. Now, that's a very serious thing. I know that as part of the Independence calendar, we have what we call Caribbean Wellness Week, which is a week that is really designed to highlight our health and how we should take care of our health. Dr. Laws, I want you to tell me, what is Caribbean Wellness Week and when was it established?
Caribbean Wellness Week was established in 2011. I will have Dr. Carty expound on that a little bit more.
Well, to expound on that, in 2007, actually, the CARICOM heads of government met for a summit in Port of Spain, Trinidad. And during this summit, they discussed the impact of non-communicable diseases on the Caribbean region. The aim of the summit was to unite the CARICOM member states in order to stop the epidemic of NCDs, which was ravaging the Caribbean region and still is. Some of the commitments that they signed on to was establishing plans within the Ministry of Health for screening for chronic diseases, and also establishing activities and strategies that would help to decrease the burden of NCDs within the member states. Out of this summit, the members signed on to the Port of Spain Declaration for NCDs. And then to commemorate this summit, they established Caribbean Wellness Day. So this is a day that is celebrated on the second Saturday in September every year since 2007. However, on a global scale, in 2011, the United Nations held a high-level meeting specifically to discuss NCDs, which was one of the first times they had taken that interest. And out of that discussion, they came up with the Global Action Plan Against NCDs. And to commemorate that event, the Pan American Health Organization established Wellness Week, which is actually the week following Caribbean Wellness Day.
Okay. Now, what is the theme for this year?
Securing the theme
Yes.
for Caribbean Wellness Week is securing a future generation through healthy eating and not smoking.
Healthy eating
And not smoking.
and not smoking. What about exercise and so on? They didn't.
We'll expound on exercise.
Okay.
But I figured they wanted to pull out two critical, to focus on two of the risk factors for NCDs. And that is
Smoking what?
unhealthy.
Tobacco or marijuana? Which one?
Tobacco. Here, I think they're referring
referring
to
to tobacco.
Tobacco.
Yes,
Tobacco.
Now, who would you say is the target audience for this week of activities? And why are you focusing on this group of individuals?
Okay, so for this week, the target audience we are focusing on includes youths between the ages of 15 to 29 years. I repeat, 15 to 29 years. And why? That's a very good question. Because really we want to prevent premature deaths. Because these are the younger persons who will be maturing and becoming middle-aged and older adults over the next 30 to 40 years. And so we want to help them adopt healthier behaviors, healthier lifestyles. So as they mature, the risk of their developing NCDs would be reduced. Yeah. Now, based on World Health Organization data, about 15 million of all deaths attributed to non-communicable diseases are premature, meaning they occur between the ages of 30 and 69 years. And of these premature deaths, 80% occurs in countries like ourselves. And so this year, we want to focus on our younger persons. In our federation, based on the last census, 25% of our population fall within this age band, 15 to 30. And so we want to zero in on these persons to help them develop healthier lifestyles so that as they mature, their risk of developing a non-communicable disease will be reduced, and in the end, we'll be preventing premature deaths in our population.
Now we are talking about non-communicable diseases, but what are non-communicable diseases?
Well, non-communicable diseases are chronic illnesses that impact persons for a long duration of time, as opposed to an infectious disease like a cough or a cold, where you pick up and within days you are much better. And these conditions, again, they do not occur because of you're picking up a germ. They occur as a result of genetic factors, environmental factors, behavioral, and lifestyle factors. So some of the non-communicable diseases include hypertension, diabetes, stroke or cerebrovascular accidents, cancers, and even respiratory tract illnesses like asthma are also included under the list of non-communicable diseases.
What about heart disease?
Heart disease also.
Cardiovascular.
Cardiovascular diseases, heart attacks, congestive cardiac failure. These are all chronic diseases.
Okay. And what are the most common ones?
Well, let's talk about our Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. The most common non-communicable disease impacting our people include hypertension and diabetes.
Why do you think that this is so? And what can be done to reduce the number of cases of hypertension and diabetes? Now, there was one theory that I heard posited once by Professor Hilary Beckles in Barbados, and he said that he attributed the high case of hypertension to perhaps slavery days, when we used to have all these salted,
High salt diet.
high salt diets and
Yes.
so on. You know, they will bring in the salted cod
Yes.
and the salted herring
Yes.
and all those, you know, and we seem to use a lot of that still today.
Yes, we do. We do. Yeah, it's still a staple here in the Caribbean.
Right.
Yes, yes, yes. And so, yes, you are right. So that brings us to the risk factors for non-communicable diseases. And you are right in saying unhealthy diets. Diets that are high in salt content, like the codfish. So consuming too much causes you to have high salt in your blood, and your blood pressure goes up as a result, and you develop hypertension and all the complications after a while. Diets that are high in refined sugars. Yes. Diets that are high in fat. Yes. And so unhealthy diets, that's one of the risk factors for the non-communicable diseases.
Maybe you should give some examples of such diets, some specifics.
Okay.
Fats.
Like pork. Yes. Stewed pork. Yes, pork dishes that have a high fat content. Oxtail, I think, has a high content of fat.
And some of your fast foods as well. So your fries, your burgers,
Yes.
and those types of foods are very high in fat because most of them are prepared by frying,
Right.
which
Yes.
is
And so it comes down to the method in which you're preparing your food. That's also, contributes to you're classifying your diet as unhealthy.
So
and so it's best to bake versus fried,
Okay.
or even stew
Okay.
versus fry.
Okay.
Yeah. So unhealthy diets, that's one of the risk factors. And physical inactivity, not exercising, that's also another significant risk factor for non-communicable diseases. And when you put the two together, unhealthy diet and physical inactivity, that can lead to obesity. Obesity in itself is a risk factor for developing the non-communicable diseases. Yes?
When we say someone is obese, what exactly do we mean?
It means that your weight for your height and bone structure, it's higher than what it ought to be. Yes.
Okay.
Tobacco use, that's also another risk factor. And harmful use of alcohol, another risk factor for NCDs. And then these, the unhealthy diet, physical inactivity, alcohol use, tobacco use, can lead to other changes, physiological changes deep within your body. For example, raised blood pressure. That's another metabolic risk factor. Raised blood sugar levels, high fat content in your blood, and obesity. So these are the risk factors for the non-communicable diseases.
Okay. Now, is there data available to support this information about NCDs and their risk factors?
Well, I could share with you some of the local data coming out of the Health Information Unit at the Ministry of Health. Now, when we are looking at the chronic non-communicable diseases, we found that 83% of all mortality or deaths within our federation can be attributed to non-communicable diseases. When we looked at the figures between the 5-year period 2009 and 2013, we found that among the CNCDs, or the chronic non-communicable diseases, cancer accounted for most of the deaths, followed by strokes, or what you call cerebrovascular accidents, complications of diabetes, and heart attack. So the major cause of deaths in this federation: cancer, strokes, complications of diabetes, and heart attack. And these all fall under the list of non-communicable diseases.
Okay.
Now, in terms of illnesses, the chronic non-communicable diseases, in particular hypertension and diabetes, are the leading cause of morbidity in our federation. And this too is based on data coming out of our Health Information Unit at the Ministry of Health. We looked at the data between 2010 and 2015, and we found that in terms of hypertension, each year we are having on an average about 107, 110 new cases of hypertension each year. And within that same time period, we had an average of about 95 new cases of diabetes each year. And so hypertension and diabetes are impacting our people. Now, in terms of the complications of diabetes and hypertension, diabetes, for example, lower limb amputations because of changes in the blood vessels, we've had an average 39 amputations per year between 2011 and 2015. Chronic renal failure is another complication of diabetes and hypertension. At present, we have almost 100 cases of chronic renal failure in our federation. So this is just to share with you some of our local data, substantiating what we're saying, that, non-communicable diseases is a major problem in our federation.
Okay, now do you think that there is some socioeconomic link with NCDs, or let me phrase it differently. What are the socioeconomic impacts of NCDs?
Well, go ahead.
Well, the burden is very great.
Yeah.
And what we find is that persons who are suffering or living, I should say, with chronic illnesses tend to require a lot in terms of management and treatment of these illnesses, and the burden of that falls on the government most of the times. We have a number of our clinics that actually cater to providing management services for individuals with diabetes and hypertension. So persons can actually go to these clinics and they are able to get information on how to manage their diseases. Now, all of these things the time has to be paid for, and so you find that is a cost. Also, when individuals have to be hospitalized for these chronic illnesses, that also bears a cost on the government. So therefore, you find that the socioeconomic status of these non-communicable diseases on the country can be very costly.
Okay. Do you think that there is a link between poverty and NCDs, for example, or people who are socially disadvantaged, people who somehow cannot cope adequately with the stresses of life, that they may turn to certain unhealthy lifestyle practices, maybe drinking, smoking?
Yes, yes, that's possible. However, I still think I want to stress that the non-communicable diseases impact all persons, all socioeconomic levels. All persons are impacted. I don't think anybody is really spared. Yeah, young, middle age, old. However, as you get older, the risk of you developing an NCD increases. But I think all persons are impacted. Yes, yes.
But do you think that what I'm trying to ask is that do you think that people who are poor or socially disadvantaged or vulnerable are more at risk?
Well, they are at risk because they may have stressors dealing within their lives, and stress and your inability to cope can increase your risk of developing an NCD. So yes, yes, yes. And there are other social factors. For example, if you want to really lead a healthy lifestyle and eat the foods that are necessary, like the fruits and the vegetables, 3 and 4 servings per day. Now that's going to cost a bit, you know. And so, yes, dealing with the NCDs has social, socioeconomic implications.
And
Right.
you find that it's easier for persons with in poverty to make the easier choices. For example, picking up a box of KFC or even a burger, as opposed to sitting down home and preparing a meal with enough vegetables and so forth at home. And we find that a lot of persons now are actually leaving the preparation of a meal at home and are opting
To
to
go
go
fast
and
food.
buy their
Yes.
meals outside. So
Faster
that
food.
is also a contributor to the problem that we're having with NCDs.
Now, I know you spoke about the impact, for example, on the government's resources. For example, hospitals and so on now have to care. It's really a cost to the government and a big cost to the government. It's a big cost to families who have to take care of, members who are
Chronically ill,
ill. And it's a cost to the country in a whole because sick people, a sick population, basically, is not really a healthy working population.
Precisely.
Right.
Yeah,
So it means then that there's less productivity,
of course. Yes.
and if people are losing breadwinners and all of that in families and so on, then the family suffers.
And that's why we are focusing on the youths,
Right.
the 15 to 29, because these are the younger ones. We want them to develop healthier lifestyles so that they won't develop the CNCDs, and so they'll be more productive. Because a healthy nation is a productive nation.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's why the emphasis for this year on the younger persons.
Good. Now, I know that this year, the Caribbean Wellness Day Week, it has been included as part of the Independence calendar of activities. Can you highlight what some of those activities are?
So
And-
there
yeah.
are 2 main activities that are a part of the Independence calendar. Yesterday, actually, the 12th, was our National Fruit Day. And that was a day where we were encouraging the eating of more fruits and vegetables, basically a healthier diet in a whole. And although because of the passage of Irma and so forth, we weren't able to advertise that day as well as we would have liked, that was one of the messages that we wanted to get out, the idea of eating healthy and including more fruits and vegetables. The other national day that we have added to the calendar is National Sneaker Day. And fortunately, that is to come. So it's on Friday, and what we're doing is we're encouraging everyone to don your sneakers and go to work and do more walking than you normally would have on a regular work
Okay.
day. So we haven't decided whether it's going to be addressed down there or not. That will be within the different workplaces, of course. However, we are encouraging as many of our business places and organizations and even government departments as much as possible to allow their employees to wear their sneakers, encourage more physical activity, encourage more walking.
So those are two activities.
Those are the two main activities.
Two main ones. Okay. Now, mention was made of the various risk factors. What advice can you share, especially with our nation's youth, as it pertains to eating a healthy diet, engaging in physical activity, avoiding the use of alcohol, avoiding the use of tobacco?
Okay. Well, as it pertains to a healthy diet, one of the things we would want to stress is eating 3 meals per day, especially not skipping breakfast. And that's one of the things that we are seeing now in a lot of our students, especially many of them going to school without having a proper breakfast in the morning. What they need to remember is that breakfast actually gives them the energy that they need to go through the day. And so skipping breakfast will actually cause more fatigue and more laid back behavior during the day. Also, drink more water. It is the key component to many of the reactions that happen in the body, and it also helps to flush the body out and make sure that everything is functioning the way that it should. Eat a variety of foods, including vegetables and fruits. As Dr. Laws mentioned, a recommended serving anywhere between 5 to 7 servings of fruits and vegetables per day. Also, snacking is also allowed. However, you would want to choose more healthy options. So we're talking about nuts and vegetable sticks and even some fruits. And the reduction of sugar-sweetened beverages. Many of our young people, they opt for sodas and lots of fruit drinks that are high in sugar. And this can, as we said, lead to NCDs, a risk factor for NCDs in the future. Also, reduce high fat or salt snacks. So we're talking about the chips and the fries and the burgers that they would generally eat as well. So that is some of the advice we would give for a healthy diet. One of the things that we are looking at in the Ministry of Health also pertains to sugar-sweetened beverages. We find that since our youth are opting for using these types of beverages on a regular basis, we realize that from the Ministry of Health perspective, that we would have to take steps on a population-wide basis in order to help to reduce this. And so one of the things that we would be implementing is an excise tax on sugar-sweetened beverages, and probably Dr. Laws could speak some more about that.
Well, Barbados and Dominica have implemented excise taxes on sugar-sweetened beverages. And there is a body of literature or evidence supporting the effectiveness of fiscal policies such as these in reducing the consumption of healthy drinks as sugar-sweetened beverages. And so as a ministry, we are considering the implementation of an excise tax on sugar-sweetened beverages. And the hope is that we would reduce the consumption and that this will be one measure in terms of our fight against NCDs.
So you're going to make those things more expensive for people to get.
Yes. And so we need to come up with appropriate alternative, because if you're going to be limiting the consumption of SSBs, sugar sweetened beverages, we need to promote the more drinking of water. But some persons say that's not going to be enough, and so we need to come up with other alternatives, healthier alternatives.
And quite frankly, we drink a lot of bush tea. here
Yes.
in the country. And there's no rule that says bush tea always has to be drunk hot. So you brew a pot of bush tea and you don't drink all of it in the morning. You could put it in the fridge and you could use the rest of it during the day. That's another alternative that can be used.
Or natural unsweetened fruit fruit juices, natural and unsweetened, because some of the fruit drinks have a high sugar content, and so I suppose natural unsweetened fruit juices can be an appropriate alternative to the sugar sweetened beverages.
Okay, now, while we're speaking about youth, and the focus is on youth because, they're the ones to really bring about the change and so on. In terms of St. Kitts and Nevis, have we seen a lot of juvenile diabetes, for example, or juvenile hypertension?
Yes, we do have a number of cases of juvenile diabetes. So yes, but I won't say it's a big problem.
It's not a big
Yeah,
problem. What about hypertension in young people?
No, that's not a problem here either.
It's not a problem.
No, it's mostly adult onset hypertension in those in their middle years and older adults. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that one of our major concerns would be childhood obesity. I think that would be the major concern as opposed to these other risk factors, but obesity in children.
Yes. Okay. So therefore, while you are focusing on youth, you have to focus on the parents as well.
Yes.
So the parents need to be educated
Yes.
in terms of
Healthy diets for
healthy
their
diets
children.
and so on for their children
Yes.
and so on. But sometimes that is where we go back to poverty sometimes. Because what is cheaper is not necessarily always the best thing
Yes. That's
or the healthiest thing.
Right.
But there are certain things you're saying that we can do. For example, the exercise. Reducing the sugar intake,
That's right.
the salt intake, the fat intake, and so on.
And you mentioned exercise. I just want us to realize that exercise is something that should be structured and planned. So exercise is structured and planned physical activity. So it's not that you are going to be walking to or from work and you think that that's enough and you don't need to structure an exercise program. I think all of us need to have a structured exercise program. And we also need to remember that there are different types of exercise. So you have endurance or aerobic exercise, which includes walking, jogging, swimming, cycling. All right, it gets your heart beat up. It improves your heart functioning, your lung functioning. All right, so that's one type of exercise. You also have strengthening or resistance exercises. That's also important. It involves using weights. Yeah, very important. Because as we age, we automatically lose strength in our muscle fibers and we lose our muscle cells. So this is a natural part of aging. And so strengthening exercises helps to combat that aspect of the aging process. And so when you're planning or structuring your exercise program, when you plan to walk 3, 4, 5 times a week, you need to also put in maybe 1 or 2 days whereby you have some weights like dumbbells, or you could just get 2 bottles with sand from the beach, and you strengthen your upper limbs and even your lower limbs. So strengthening exercises are important, and flexibility exercises whereby you stretch to maintain your full range of motion of your joints in your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists, your knees, your hip joints, etc. And so when we are structuring our exercise program, yes, we need to walk, we need to jog and cycle, but you need to have, some dumbbells or some weights 2 or 3 times a week. And I suppose at the beginning or at the end of each of your exercise routine, you do some flexibility exercises where you stretch all your joints. So we need to be cognizant of the various types of exercises. And in terms of the levels of exercise, that too is very important. If we want to benefit maximally from exercise, the literature tells us that you need to be exercising for 150 minutes or more per week. That's 2.5 hours to 5 hours per week. So that's in the medium activity level category. And in terms of the health benefits, you get substantial health benefits. You don't really get much of a health benefit if you exercise less than that. So in other words, as individuals, we need to aim to exercise 45 an hour, 45 minutes to an hour per day, 3 to 5 days a week. Yeah, if we really want to have a good exercise program whereby you are going to benefit maximally. Yeah, and so we need to remember the types of exercise, we need to mix it, and the level, how much time you put into your exercise program. That's also very important.
And Mr. Williams, permit me to add that along with a healthy diet and physical activity, rest is very important, and getting adequate sleep. And if you recognize
What
that
is
the
adequate?
age range, okay, that's what I was going to say, the age range that we're looking at with 15 to 29, these are the persons who are in high school, college or university, or they're just starting out their careers. And you find that they tend to spend a lot of time either studying late at night or doing added work and end up going to sleep very late. And then they have to wake up early in the next day to get their work done. You asked what is adequate for this age range, anywhere between 8 to 10 hours of sleep. Now it sounds a lot, and you ask, well, who will ever get that? But quite frankly, if we aim to go to bed anywhere between 10:30 and 11, and we wake anywhere between 6 and 6:30, we would have gotten that about 8 hours of sleep. So it's doable. It's just that we're not all getting it in. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, now is there a link between, for example, family history,
Oh, Jenny, yes.
the genetics and
Makeup.
so on, makeup?
Yes.
Can that predispose you
Of
to
course.
NCDs?
Of course, yes. So if your mom or your dad has diabetes or hypertension, chances are genetically you are predisposed to developing diabetes and hypertension. So then you may be asking yourself, so what can I do to prevent the onset or delay the onset? And so a healthy lifestyle, along the lines we are discussing in terms of the diet and the exercise, keeping your weight down, can delay or even prevent the onset in you. So even though you may be genetically predisposed, it doesn't have to show up in you if you are very cognizant of your lifestyle and make healthy choices. Yes. So yes, you can be genetically predisposed to 1 or 2 of these NCDs that we are referring to.
Now, are you seeing the case where, for example, here in St. Kitts, where people who have one of the NCDs, for example, diabetes, that they also have hypertension?
Yeah, that's very common. Yeah, very, very common. Yes. So there's a percentage of persons who have both, actually, hypertension and diabetes. Yeah. Because the risk factors for each are the same. The unhealthy eating, the inactivity, the obesity, the alcohol use and the tobacco use.
They're all
So
the
the risk
same.
factors are the same. So they almost go hand in hand.
Now, I notice you stress tobacco use. What about the use of cannabis? Does that have any sort of... Because I think here that most young persons, we were talking about youth, probably do not smoke tobacco. But they will smoke weed or marijuana.
Yes.
What impact does that have on a person developing an NCD?
Well, I don't think we have the evidence to support the association or an association between cannabis use and the development of diabetes and hypertension. However, there is very, very strong, convincing evidence that supports the link between tobacco and diabetes, hypertension, and cancer. Yeah. So the medical literature, supports that link between tobacco and NCDs. But I am not sure if we have convincing evidence, of an association or a link between cannabis and the NCDs.
Okay.
All right. And so I suppose that's futuristic. Who knows what would come to the fore? Yes.
Now, in advocating for the avoidance of the use of alcohol, there is use and there's abuse, isn't there?
Yes.
So, at what point can we use alcohol? And at what point does it become abuse? Because if we're saying avoiding the use of alcohol, is alcohol all bad for the body? It's not all bad, and I don't think it's all good. So where are we on that? Because, for example, young people especially here in St. Kitts drink a lot. They drink a lot of beers. Let's go and bang some beers. Let's go down by the ferry terminal and we'll have, so many rounds. It's not like having one or two, but you're buying rounds. And then also the hard liquor, the rum and the Hammond and other things. And, they hardly drink wine, red wine, which they say is good for the heart and so on. So is a little alcohol good for the body? I'm asking.
I don't think that we can sit here and say yes or no to that question, whether a little alcohol is good for the body. However, there is evidence to show that a lot of what you spoke about in terms of the binge drinking that happens on the weekends, where individuals will go out and they would buy rounds and they would probably just drink on the weekend, but maybe not drink as much during the week. That type of drinking is actually more dangerous to the body than having a one drink during the week. So there's evidence to show that. In terms of how alcohol affects the body, we have to consider that not everyone is made up the same way. And so whereas one individual may be able to handle a drink or two during the week, another individual may not. And so our stance on it is better for us to avoid a substance that will be more dangerous to the body than to say, yes, it is okay to drink a little, but how are you going to gauge what is a little for any one individual?
And how are you going to ensure that you have the discipline to cease, after that one little glass of red wine, as opposed to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 glasses,
Yes.
and thus I think that's why the literature is suggesting avoiding. Yeah,
Avoiding altogether.
Yeah,
Right.
because then you won't have to depend on self-discipline to stop after that small amount.
And for some people, I think it's tied to the social conditions.
Yes.
It's tied to the drinking is tied. For example, in men, for some time it's a rite of passage. You know, it's a, you know, I drink, so it's a sign of, you know, a coming of age. You know,
Right.
I'm a man, sort of, you know, the more I drink is the more manly I am. So, and in some cultures, that is how it is actually. You know, so the cultural and the social, I think, sometimes are factors that put a lot of pressure on people
Yes, yes.
to smoke and to drink. So when we are looking at probably curbing the alcohol and tobacco use and the marijuana use, even though you said, you know, we probably have to look at the social conditions
And the environmental.
and the environmental, because they play a great part, I think, in people
Making the decisions. that
making
they do.
those decisions.
Because, for example, I've had a patient or two who have been diagnosed with lung cancer and they've never smoked a day. However, they would provide you with the history that their spouse smoked.
So the second-hand
So the
smoke.
second-hand smoke is very, you know, is very important. And so again, it comes down to the environmental factors.
Is that worse than the first-hand smoke? Because it's not filtered.
Well, both are. And so that's why the Framework Convention for Tobacco Control is really suggesting that territories like ourselves look at the whole topic of legislation. You know, are we going to develop a legislation that restricts tobacco smoking in public spaces? Some territories have gone that route, you know, so that you are creating an environment whereby you have reduced or no tobacco exposure, and so you will be reducing one of the risk factors for NCDs.
Okay.
Yes. And so as a federation, that too we need to be looking at. What are we going to do to reduce the, you know, tobacco exposure, you know, in our federation? So that's something we need to be looking at.
Can NCDs be passed on from mother to child? Is it possible for a child to be born, for example, with diabetes, with hypertension, or with cardiovascular illness, or heart illness?
Yes,
And is that possible that it could be because of the practices, the unhealthy practices of the parent, and in this case the mother?
All right. What the literature or the evidence is suggesting is, as a woman, your lifestyle practices impacts the genetic makeup of your child. And so what they're saying is that when a child is in utero, all right, the mother's health status, the mother's lifestyle practices at that time can play a part in that child developing developing an NCD later on in that child's life. Yeah? And so the in utero environment for a child is very, very important. And so mothers who are pregnant, you need to be cognizant of the fact that your health status during pregnancy, your lifestyle practices during pregnancy affects your child even later on in the child's life, and determines their risk
Sure.
of developing an NCD later on in life. Yeah?
No, you correctly said there are some persons who never smoked in their lives, who never drank,
Yeah.
who do all the correct things,
Yes, and
in
develop-
terms of diet and so on, and still develop
develop-
NCDs.
Precisely.
Now, what is that attributed to?
We did mention earlier
The hereditary?
that
Genetic
the genetic
makeup.
disposition.
It's
genetic-
To an
it's a genetic
extent, yes,
makeup.
to an
Genetic.
extent, yes.
Okay, but that is far and few between.
I won't say far and few between because NCDs are so prevalent. I think no, I won't say far and few between. The diagnosis of an NCD is multifactorial. It depends on your genetic makeup, your environment, and not just my environment now, but my environment when I was in utero, my environment during childhood and young adulthood, and up to the age when you become diagnosed. So it's genetic factors, environmental factors, behavioral, meaning what you do, how you live, your lifestyle choices, all
Yes.
comes and contributes to your being diagnosed with an NCD. So it's multifactorial.
Now, then, is there any link between mental health and NCDs?
In terms of, Dr. Laws just mentioned it, just mentioned stress. And you find that individuals who are in a very high stressful environment tend to develop NCDs more often than individuals who are in a more relaxed environment. We speak about type A personalities, for example, persons who are considered workaholics, and so everything they do, eat, sleep, work, for example, you'll find that these individuals tend to be the ones who would suffer more from cardiovascular problems, so heart disease, heart attacks, and strokes. You'll find also that individuals who tend to allow their work to encompass everything that they do, to an extent, they also would suffer more from depression, for example, because then they wouldn't be engaging in social interactions as much as other individuals as well.
Now, one of the reasons why I asked that question is because health is something that is comprehensive.
Yes.
Yes.
And while we stress a lot on physical health, health is not just about the physical.
It's
In terms of the emotional, the psychological, the emotion, yes. Our young people, what is being done to focus also on that? I know we are specifically looking at NCDs, but what about issues that can really affect emotional health, psychological health, mental health? We need to address those in our young people as well.
Yes.
Dr. Laws, you were saying?
Oh, I wanted to show you
Sure.
the link between stress and heart.
Sure.
All right. When you are undergoing a stressful situation, your body is in a state of flight and fight. All right. And so you have your adrenaline flowing, increased levels of hormones, little chemicals in your body like adrenaline and cortisol. And so your heart rate goes up, right? You start breathing faster. Your blood pressure also goes up. And so if you are undergoing that period of stress for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, so that means your blood pressure is up for a prolonged
Constantly.
period.
Yes.
Your heart rate is up for a prolonged period. You're breathing faster for a prolonged period. You understand what's going to happen? You're going to end up with, cardiovascular issues. And so I'm just trying to show the link between highly stressful situations for a prolonged period of time and how you can end up with a non-communicable disease.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's important for us to try and develop appropriate coping mechanisms. Stress is a part of life, but how are we going to cope with these stressful situations?
Okay.
Yeah.
So what Dr. Carty, in addition to what Dr. Laws has said, how can we help young people to deal with issues of emotional, psychological wellness?
Well, one of the first things is being able to recognize the signs in these young people. There are a number of changes that can happen in a young person when they're suffering from a mental illness, for example. We talk about changes in the way that they think. So you find they have a lot of negative thoughts that tend to go through, and some of them voice them so that we are able to know that that's what they're thinking. Then you have changes in their feelings, so they would feel very unhappy or sad or very worried about things around them. Changes in their behavior. And that's a very important one, because when you see young people not being interested in the things that they used to be interested in, for example, if they used to play sports and they're not wanting to play that sport anymore, if they used to engage in social behaviors with their friends and they're no longer wanting to do that, these are signs that we can pick up on in order to tell that these children or this youth is going through a change in their life. And when you're able to monitor these things and pick these up, then you're able to make the interventions. One of the things that I would encourage is making sure that we reinforce positive thinking in our young people. We find that positive thinking has a direct effect on our physical well-being. And whenever we speak about affirmations, having a young person say to themselves, I am worth it, I am special, I have a purpose in life. These are the kinds of things that we need to encourage in our young people, to speak about themselves so that they do not have these emotional problems.
Okay. Is there something you wanted to add?
Yes, in terms of the emotional wellness of our youths, just to stress the importance of younger persons developing a healthy web of social relationships, good relationships within the family circle, at school, even in the church circle. But it's very, very important for younger persons to have a healthy web of friendships. Because your social network is very, very important in terms of your emotional and psychological well-being. And this is not just so for younger persons, but for all persons, everybody. But even more so for the younger ones.
Right.
Because younger persons too are at risk for depression. But if you have that good emotional support system that's going to help you when you're feeling down, that's going to be a buffer. Yeah? And so a healthy network of friends, helps to foster good emotional, psychological wellness.
Now, while you stress on the friends and somehow that is so important, I think a healthy family network
Yes.
is so important,
Yes.
because sometimes in families you get a lot of negative, and some people will tell you. I was speaking to somebody the other day, a young man, and he said to me, I don't think my family loves me. I don't think my family, and that has been my problem.
One of our problems is that we do not recognize that emotional abuse is just as significant as physical or sexual abuse. And so you find that there are lots of young people who maybe live in families who don't appreciate them as much as they should, who don't tell them that they love them as much as they should, and who don't affirm them for the things that they do as well. A lot of times, just if a young person achieves well in school or something, and there's no recognition of that, then they feel they haven't accomplished, simply because nobody took the time out to tell them, I'm proud of you for what you have done. And that can weigh heavily on the emotional wellness of a young person.
And so that's why I was saying, in terms of a healthy web of friends, if it's not in the family circle, it can be in the school circle.
Yes.
So that individual, if they're school age, maybe there's a good friend at school
Who they can talk
or
with.
at the university or at the college who can provide that needed emotional support. Or it can be, from a wider network. If it's in the work setting, you may have that one individual who you can, relate to and share at a deeper level. And so you have our church, so it all depends on the individual and your circumstance. But each of us, we need that emotional support. Our health and well-being, along with the food, the healthy diet, and the physical activity, social support, critical, very, very important for our emotional and psychological well-being.
Once ago there used to be, young people will go to a lot of these clubs. You had the 4-H club. Young people will go to church and find themselves in different groups,
Yes.
For example, groups that somehow focus a lot on volunteerism
Right.
and things like that. But today, somehow, you're still seeing some of it. But I think there has been, in my estimation, some reduction. You have more young people who are not going to church,
Yes, that's true.
for example, and joining groups and so on that will promote that sort of a positive behavior.
Right.
So because there are
And-
other groups, like Rotary and
Rotary.
what are the other ones here? Kiwanis. You have other social groups that you can be a part of, and you can contribute to society, and that too helps to facilitate good emotional and psychological well-being.
Right. Now, Dr. Carty and Dr. Laws, we have to go to the phone lines and hear what the people have to ask us. We can put our headphones on. The numbers to call are 465-2555. That's the local number. 465-2555. And the overseas number is 1-718-577-2916. 1-718-577-2916. The phone lines are open. We await your calls. Working for you, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. I hear this thing all the time, and I just need to question the doctors in it.
Sure.
Free food. Now, I spoke to a medical practitioner so many years ago who will be nameless. And they told me frying food is not a problem. It's what you fry the food with. So I want to know if she can expound on that, because I have an oilless fryer here that all you do is dip the stuff in some oil, and then you put it inside, and you must, well, I don't call it a fryer, but that's what I call it. You basically bake. So what is the difference between baking and frying? Like I said, that individual told me that it's not frying is not the problem, is what you fry with. So listen out here. Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I'll listen. You understand the question, right?
Yes,
Yes,
we do.
we do.
Yes, we do.
Okay, right.
Okay. One of the things I was.
Before there's
Yes,
another.
sorry.
Good afternoon. Working for you.
Good afternoon to you all.
Good afternoon.
How is everything after the weather?
Well, I think we are here. We thank God for life.
Yeah, we have to give him praise. Yes, my question. I think one of your panelists talked about serving, but she did not explain what makes a serving, whether it's an ounce, a handful, a half pint, as the case may be. You get that right?
Yes.
Okay, and my next question is, today, as is in the Federation, yes, we talk about the non-communicable diseases, and they are a threat. But what about the communicable diseases like AIDS and herpes and all of that? And should shouldn't the Federation be told over and over about these communicable diseases because of lifestyle choices? It seems like it is a problem, but this is only my opinion. It is important for me and maybe others to know what the status of the Federation is regarding these communicable diseases, and between the non-communicable and those that are communicable, which is the greater threat to us as a federation right now? I'll continue to listen.
Okay, so I will take the first question. And the gentleman was speaking about the idea of frying and whether it is as bad as it's purported to be, and whether or not what you fry the foods in is important. Yes, I will say definitely what you use to fry your foods with is important, but what we need to understand first and foremost with frying is that once oil is heated, it produces trans fats. And those trans fats are what causes a lot of the damage to the cardiovascular system. So that's the first thing. But yes, there are some oils that are that can be used that tolerate a higher heat, so that they don't convert into trans fats as easy as others. For example, olive oil is a very low heat tolerant oil. So therefore, we do not recommend that persons use olive oil for frying. As a matter of fact, just a little heat on olive oil can actually cause it to burn, turn to trans fats. So olive oil, it's recommended that you use it raw, generally over a salad if you're going to use it, but not to be used for frying at all.
Interesting.
A high heat oil that can be used for frying is grapeseed oil. And it's also a healthier oil in the sense that it does not contain as much saturated fat as the vegetable oils or your corn oil or canola oils, those types of oils. So you'll find that the vegetable oils, your canola oil, your soybean oils, these have a low heat tolerance, and so when you use those types of oils for frying, they tend to burn easily and convert to trans fats. So that is the difference I would mention in terms of oils for frying.
Okay. I think there was another question.
Servings.
Oh yes, the lady
Servings.
asked about servings and what sizes are recommended as it pertains to servings. Generally, a serving, especially when it comes to fruits and vegetables, can either be a handful or a cup. It depends. Different fruits and vegetables. If your vegetables are cut up or diced up, they generally use a cup. So they will say a cup will be a serving. However, if you're talking, for example, about nuts and grains, they will generally use a handful as the amount as a portion for a serving.
And in terms of serving, if you were to consider a plate of food, persons I know would say if half of the plate has rice and peas, right, and quarter is your chicken or your fish and quarter is your vegetable, that's a very common serving. That's what I see when I go out.
Right.
However, one may want to reduce the amount of rice and peas. So if you consider a plate of food, a more appropriate serving of rice and peas would be like a quarter. Am I right?
Yes,
About
you are.
a quarter of the plate. Yeah? And the other quarter should be your
protein.
fish or your chicken. And the half of the plate should be your vegetable. Your carrots, your cabbage, your lettuce, your cucumber, your tomato, etc.
And your ground provisions,
And your
so your pumpkin and your potatoes,
Yes,
and
or
those,
plantain.
or plantains,
Yeah.
yes.
But I'll tell you what I have seen is that in the Caribbean is that you're going to have your rice, and you'll have your rice, and then you're going to have a nice piece of macaroni pie.
Yes.
And then you're going to have some mashed potatoes. And then you're still going to have some ground provisions.
Right.
And so on. And then you're going to have 3 types of meats. So you're going to have some pork, and you're going to have some chicken, and something else, and so on. And that is how we do it,
But then you mentioned
And no
4
vegetables.
Exactly.
And
that's
so there's a little issue right there because you mentioned 4 starches.
Yes.
You mentioned rice and peas. You have your macaroni, and you said your ground provision. What else did he say?
Potato.
And
Your potato.
Oops. So you have an overload right there of carbohydrates, and so your sugar content, your sugar intake after such a meal will be tremendous.
Yes.
Much more than you really would want.
And
Yes?
sometimes, too, of course, you have the range of different things. You're lined off in a sort of a buffet. And, of course, it's called buffet, so you think that you have to have something of everything that is there.
Right. And importantly, you said no vegetable, when in fact, you need a big portion of vegetable.
Working for you, we have somebody on the line. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Williams.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to the CMO.
Good afternoon.
There's a law, so she doesn't remember me.
Good afternoon.
I thought I'm at 41. Anyway, let me get to the other one. Good afternoon to the next lady.
Good afternoon.
Dr.
Good
Cathy,
afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, now I have a problem at the hospital in terms of the dietary content of patients with diabetes. I have had relatives there, and to me, too much starch is given to these patients. I mean, they give you soup with Tanya Dashi and everything. And then they act surprised when they go to take the test the sugar, it is high. I don't know if the hospital need to get somebody to contribute more green vegetables like cabbage or something, because those things are scarce on the plate. I don't know if Miss Dr. Laws has taken time to visit the wards or visit the kitchen and see what is given to diabetes patients, because I keep complaining about it. Some of the patients are unable to even eat when they finish. And to me, they counter it by just giving higher doses of insulin. So while people are trying, because like for me, I'm diabetic, and I try to avoid too much starch, because I find if I eat with potato, I push up my sugar. My sugar goes up easily.
Yes.
Right? So I try to eat vegetables, basically. I tried using yam because I find that my body tolerates yam better than sweet potato. My sugar doesn't just rise up like that. But it is important to me that somebody seriously take a look at the foods given to diabetic patients. They go for surgery or whatever, and the food is no better than what the other patients are getting. So what do you know about that? Is there anything you can do about it?
Okay, I must say I visited the kitchen at the JNF hospital about 2 weeks ago. But no, I didn't look at the portion sizes that were given to the diabetic patients. But that's something that we can look into. And so you are definitely right. As a diabetic, one needs to pay particular attention to the portion sizes in terms of the starch intake, the vegetable, fruit, etc. So that's something that we are going to look into. So thanks for bringing it to the fore. A previous caller spoke about communicable diseases as opposed to the non-communicable diseases. So this afternoon, yes, we are focusing on the non-communicable diseases. However, yes, we are impacted by some of the communicable diseases. But based on the data, the information at the Health Information Unit at the Ministry of Health, the chronic non-communicable diseases is our biggest problem. As I said earlier in the program, they account for 83% of all mortality. All right. So the deaths that occur mainly in our federation are caused by cancer, strokes, complications of diabetes, and heart attacks, etc.
You have someone on the line,
Yes.
Dr. Laws. Working for you, good afternoon.
Hello?
Yes, hello, good afternoon. Working for you.
Hello?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I was listening to this program a little earlier, and I'm calling from news. I hear the lady was talking about the marijuana.
Yes.
The biggest problem I have here with these youngsters, and that is what giving the marijuana so much bad name. They want to drink, they want to have a Guinness in the hand, they want to have a spliff in the hand. They want to have a quarter side of them or half, or a bottle, they want to have a spliff in the hand. That's the biggest problem I have. You know, and I think they're abusing it. You know, I don't like to see that at all. You know, you're smoking, you deal with one thing, you know, and that is the biggest problem right now. You know, these youngsters, they can't control themselves when they smoke a spliff and they drink a Guinness or drink a quarter or drink, you know, something. You know, they mix. So to me, they're abusing it. Cannabis is not bad, but it's the way how you use it. You're not supposed to abuse it. You know, and these youngsters, they're just abusing it. That is how I see it. Because I watch a lot of them, and I just shake my head, but, you know, we can't talk to them, so we just have to leave them to the still. So when something happens, people blame marijuana, but it's a mixture. That is what they're dealing with. God bless them.
Thank you.
Well, this last caller spoke to persons abusing substances. What I would say is, as a youth, once a youth engages in risky behavior and abuse, say, alcohol, it's easy for that individual to abuse other substances. That's what the literature suggests. So once you begin engaging in risky behavior and involved with tobacco use, chances are you'll be involved in abusing other substances. Yeah, it tends to go hand in hand. I want to go back to the other caller who spoke to communicable diseases, and she mentioned HIV. The prevalence of HIV in the Federation is approximately, or is estimated to be at about 1% or less. So it's not as big a problem as the NCD problem. Our biggest health challenge in the Federation is that of the non-communicable diseases. That's our biggest problem. And so that's why this afternoon we are focusing on the NCDs. And because of the lifestyle challenges that are required, the lifestyle changes that are required, we need to spend time on, talking about healthy diets and exercise, because it's hard for persons to change their behavior and engage in the healthy lifestyle practices that we want them to adopt.
Now we speak about alcohol and we speak about tobacco. What exactly do these substances do to the body? How do they harm the body? I don't think we addressed that. We just said, well, they contribute to non-communicable diseases, but how do they actually harm the body? What harm are they doing to the body? Apart from giving you diabetes and what we call pressure, hypertension, what are they doing to the body? What are the negative effects on the body?
As I speak to alcohol, one of the effects that alcohol has on the body is that it destroys the cells of the liver. And excessive use of alcohol can actually cause cirrhosis of the liver, and that's a breakdown of the cells in the liver. And it inhibits the liver from functioning the way that it should. As a matter of fact, the liver is one of the most important organs in the body in terms of detoxifying the body for any aspect. And so when the liver goes, then you will find that the body will shut down. So that's one of the main effects that alcohol has on the body. Alcohol also affects your brain cells. There are a number of studies that show that alcohol can actually damage brain cells and can cause inhibitions and those kinds of things. So we find that those two are the main things that we mention when it comes to the effect of alcohol on the body. When it comes to tobacco, one of the main things that we mention is the lung cancer. It destroys the cells in the lungs. It causes problems such as COPD, or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And so with that disease, what you have is a difficulty in breathing properly. Your lungs are unable to take in the amount of oxygen that the body needs, and you have difficulty breathing. It also can lead to another lung disease called emphysema as well, which is just the opposite of COPD to an extent, in that it's difficult for you to breathe out as it is to breathe in. So these are some of the actual physical problems that both of these substances have on the body.
It hardens the arteries as well.
Yes, it can.
Working for you, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Williams and company.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, well, what I would like for you all to do is to work for us. Now, Dr. Laws, I think you have the power of authority to recommend to the government that the hospital be supplied with the proper green leafy food and vegetable on a weekly basis from the agriculture department. That would help those patients who have to depend on the less starchy food, like one caller recommended, that the amount of starch that we get in the food in the hospital, that contributes to the high rise in the sugar. And again, if the agriculture cannot supply the hospital with the right food on a regular basis, the government has a lot of land around still just for harvesting grass. So they could utilize a whole cane field and plant the correct food that we all should eat. Because I don't think the hospital is supposed to go down where go buy food for India, and we got land. So Dr. Laws, please use your power of authority to the Ministry of Agriculture to plant the correct green food that we can have it to eat. That's my suggestion.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you too.
Working for you, good afternoon.
Yes, I'm back again. Thanks for your reply.
Welcome back.
Yeah. What I would like to know is, doesn't the hospital have a dietitian? That's one. And two, one of the panelists talk about the use of alcohol, like destroying the cells in the liver. I think this leads to cirrhosis of the liver. What I would like to know is this, and others. If somebody doesn't drink as much water, or the recommended amount of water, let's say for days on end, they just drink a little and days on end, nothing. What I would like to know is, does the lack of water, serious lack of water, have the same or similar effect on the liver, in that the cells are destroyed maybe by the toxins that should be eliminated from the liver when there is the recommended amount of water in it? You get that question? You understand the question?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right, then.
Yes.
I'll continue to listen to the response. All right.
All right. Yes, the JNF General Hospital does have a dietitian who works with the preparation of meals for the patients. And chronic intake or chronic lack of intake of adequate amount of water affects all organs in your body, not just your liver and the liver cells, but all organs in the body. So it's important to have adequate intake of water. And I don't like to say 6 or 8 glasses of water because it varies person to person. You would have had adequate amount of water when your urine is clear. Yes.
Sometimes mine is. Okay, so I think that we have to wrap up.
Yes.
And Caribbean Wellness Day week, the overall message for youth during this week, but the overall message for all of us, what would you say that is?
Well, for me, the overall message for younger persons and for all of us is for us to try our very best to always choose a healthy diet, low in salt, low in fat, low in refined sugars. Try and exercise 2.5 hours to 5 hours per week. Try and avoid smoking and avoid alcohol.
Dr.
And
Carty?
I would say from the Ministry of Health perspective, I would say we have an obligation to our young people to provide them with adequate information so that they make healthy choices. And so making sure that we have, exercises like these, for example, and also other types of avenues where we can reach our young people so that they're able to know exactly what is a healthy diet, how to do these exercises, and make the choices that are healthy for them is important in order for them to have a sustainable life.
Now, one of the things that came to mind, I know we are wrapping up, is that of natural foods. Foods that are free of preservatives and so on. Does that?
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Plant-based foods
Plant-based.
that are free from, that are unprocessed and free from preservatives. That's always the best.
Okay.
Yes,
Good.
yes.
Well, Dr. Carty and Dr. Laos, I want to thank you so much for coming today and speaking about NCDs, speaking about wellness on a whole, physical and mental, psychological, emotional, of course, in a very comprehensive way, and to educate our population of the importance in terms of exercise, a healthy diet, a healthy social life, which Dr. Laws stressed, that social network, which is so important, and really the message that you have to our young people who are basically our generation and who basically should adopt healthy lifestyle practices. So thank you so much for being on today's program, and I look forward to seeing you again. Dr. Laws, you're now a veteran in this program. Is it your third or your second or your third time on this program?
Thank you for having me.
Yes, okay. I want to thank all of you so much for tuning in to today's program. We have been talking about NCDs, which are non-communicable diseases, and trying to emphasize the importance of a healthy lifestyle, that is exercise, healthy diet, healthy and positive thinking, and a good social network, and so on. I am your host, Les Roy Williams. I want to thank you so much for tuning in to today's program. I thank you for tuning in week to week so that you can be informed about so many pertinent issues. Next week, we'll be back for another Working for You. In the meantime, stay safe, be healthy, and exercise. Have a good day.
Working for You. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Lesroy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for you is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for you.